Okay, so for the homework this week, I have a different, somewhat more complex UV thing set up. So we have this frame here, and if you take a look at it, there's a picture in the middle, there's a little bit of extruding going on these edges, and then there is a back. So this is a fully three-dimensional thing, and the resulting UV map, which I already put into a Photoshop file for you all, is over here. And you can see that even though this is a very thing with a lot of straight lines, that's not how it works out. And the reason for that is because there's this interior piece right here. By the way, this middle, blank. There's nothing there. Whatever you paint there will not show up. But if we look at the actual model, see how this is inset, this right here? Well, in order to get it out of the center, again, you have to have a bit of a distortion. So this is a little bit distorted here. And then in order to have enough room for it, everything else kind of expands out a little bit. If we actually look at if I bring up UVing again, there we go. Yeah, we can see here that I straightened things out a little bit more than the computer wanted, and it does mean that this, see, it's a little bit red. It means there's not a lot of room there. I did that on purpose because I would rather have a little bit less room for resolution than have this huge, than have all the rest of this be like wildly distorted in terms of being crooked. So this is a little bit not perfectly straight, which means if we put a checkerboard pattern on it, it's not oh, I need to make this a little bit smaller or denser. There we go. Nope. You have to change this pattern depending on what you're doing. So you can see it. There we go. So you can see it's moving down like this a little bit. Not ideal, but this is very typical of what would happen. So the idea is I want you to paint some stuff on here so that when we bring it into class next time, I'm going to review how to bring in textures and so you can see what happens. If I go up here, by the way, this is the picture on the inside. This is the backing. Picture, backing. Part of this is we're not going to get like naturalistic textures. We're not there yet. I don't expect everyone to have good painting skills in Photoshop. So like a perfectly naturalistic wood texture, even though this looks like a wood frame, you don't have to go for that. You can make it pink and purple polka dots for all I care. What I do care about is you being careful about things like the seams. Paying attention to the fact that if something starts over here, it needs to, like if I grab something here, if this starts over here, it needs to end over here so that when you put this seam together in the computer, it's getting as close as possible. Considering stuff like that, considering stuff like, well, if we're painting this all brown, then maybe we are, in these interior pockets using the burn tool a little bit, or maybe we're, putting a little bit more detail in here because this is kind of out there. We want to make sure we're remembering to turn off the UV layer when we're done. If we scale something into here, we're doing so properly as a picture so that it doesn't look distorted. We want to be careful when we're making this. So you can make it look like whatever you want, but I do not want to see like Scribblesaurus Rex going on, right? I want to see you actually being careful about painting it and actually considering where stuff goes, paying attention to this map. In large part because you need the experience of bringing this into Maya and having it not work out the way you expect it. So a huge part of this is going to be simply that next time in class, when we bring stuff in, you're going to be surprised. And it's not going to be as pleasant as you think because it's just not going to work perfectly. That's the point. We want to see the kinds of problems that can come up so that when you are actually going after something, that you're ready for that. You are ready for it to not be perfect. This is a live connection that happens. So when you apply a texture to here, you can go into Photoshop, make changes, save, and when you come back in Maya, there's a button for reloading, and then you can see it update in here. So you're not married to a texture once you create it, which is great. So consider that. All right, but it's in the same folder. Or the same zip folder. These, I know these are called two different assignments. It's the same zip folder. So you can find the scene file. It's one that says frame. This is what the box I started with. It's unmapped. This is the finished map. And under source images, you'll find UV or out UV frame. That's the PSD file that you want to work with. And if you work with it in there, what you're going to need to do is bring the whole file, the whole folder, with you to class. And then we will make our changes. And then when you submit it, you will be zipping this folder back up and submitting it. Now, word of warning that when you download stuff that is a zip file, all right, you can't just double click on it and go in there and access those files. You have to select whatever's in there, copy it, go out, and then paste it, because you can't work from within a zip file. It's compressed, and when something's compressed, you can't access it properly. But I've got a list of things here that you're wanting to pay attention to. Don't get hung up on it being naturalistic. You might be spending a lot of time and not getting where you need to, because without bump maps, without without real lights, it's not going to look realistic. But be prepared for it to not look as you think it will when we get to class. Again, that's part of the issue, but we're going to spend the first part of class going over how to import these again so you can see how it looks, and then you will be submitting that.